Hello, and welcome back to It's a Very Exciting Time, a podcast by a UFO nerd and its tolerant friend. My name is Scott, and I've been fascinated by the phenomenon my whole life.
And my name is Chuck. I'm an aerospace nerd and a tolerant friend.
We started this podcast because since 2017, there have been shocking revelations, from news of secret Pentagon programs to confirmed Navy videos of astonishing craft. In a nutshell, now that the government has admitted that UFOs are real,
Or at least that the videos were authentic.
it raises a natural question. If UFOs are real, what else? Suddenly, some of these other parts of the phenomenon that seemed unlikely are pulled into the realm of the possible.
Right? They may still be unlikely, but there's so many explanations for these stories. Even if the truth is more mundane than you're hoping, if any of it turns out to be true, whew,
Woo! It's a very exciting time. Okay, we're doing it, Chuck.
all
It
right.
finally dropped. We've
Okay.
been waiting and waiting and waiting since Halloween.
Yeah,
The 2022 UAP report has finally been released.
I'm
And we're
jazzed.
actually back on our off week to record this. We just
Yeah,
recorded
yeah.
last week. Normally, we'd be skipping this week. We're throwing our schedule into chaos
Yeah, at my
to get
request,
this
no
information.
less. I was so
Yeah.
excited by this and I wanted to talk it through and yeah, I'm very jazzed.
Right? Yeah, I pinged Chuck. I'm like, hey, man, do you want to record on our off week? I don't know if you have plans. He's like, let's do it. I'm pumped.
Yeah. Well, I have loads of questions because this report
Yeah.
it does not look the way I expected it to at all. So,
Oh,
yeah,
man. All right. Well, let's okay. So I've got some notes kind of covering what's in the report. Do you want me to
sure.
do that first, or do you just want to dive right into your questions and thoughts?
I mean, I feel like we should at least summarize it a little bit, right?
Okay,
And then we'll
no
dig
problem.
in.
Yeah, so I got some notes here kind of covering the basics of the report. It won't take long, I can tell
Nope,
you that.
sure won't.
It is a 12-page document, including three appendixes, a cover page, and an intro letter with a
Yeah,
table of contents. Like, there's probably 3 pages of actual meat on
yeah,
this bone.
yeah,
Okay, so the one bit of credit I will give them. We've talked before when we did our episode on why the report was late. We mentioned that we were hearing from people like, "Hey, this is not all that uncommon for
mm,
like government and military reports to be late. Like
sure.
you're getting worked up over kind of standard operating procedure." And another thing we heard was the report was basically done on time, but
Hmm.
it has to go through so many people, each of whom can raise objections, request changes, that it was just
Yeah,
stuck in this hellish back and forth.
right.
So I want to give the department that is now putting this together is called AARO, which is the oh boy, look at me not being ready. I've
Yeah,
I've
right.
got the document pulled up and everything.
I'm just like
The
making up names.
AARO.
All domain anomaly resolution office, which
Thank
is
you.
funny that
Thank you.
they use that acronym before they define it, like a couple times. I was like, what are you
Of
doing?
course.
This is this
It's
is newbie
it's
stuff.
like
Come on.
it's like in the Marvel movies. So it's like a strategic homeland intervention and logistics division or whatever. And
Yeah.
someone's like, what does that mean? It means someone really wanted to use the acronym SHIELD.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Arrow, as a department, has only existed since July.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, admittedly, there was a department before that called the UAP Task Force, which was apparently part of the Navy. I didn't know that. I just
Hmm.
found that out.
Oh, interesting.
And that got taken over by Arrow. The task force was de-established, which
Hmm.
is a very strange word, but that appeared in there. Um, but yeah, basically, new director took over a new office in July and was
Yeah.
expected to deliver a comprehensive report July, August, September, October, like 3 months later. So
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
prepared to throw them a little bit of
A
a
little
bone
bone. Okay.
and just a little bit of understanding that maybe there's not a lot of meat on this just yet.
Sure.
That said, if next year's report is equally bare bones, to hell with them. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
new office. the other thing is in the document they mentioned. I just want to read this real fast.
Yeah.
Uh, the This report was drafted by the Office of the Department of Naval Intelligence, Office of the Director of Naval Intelligence's uh, NIM, which is like the uh, God, all these acronyms, dude.
Yeah.
Military hell. It was like the National
National
Intelligence
Intelligence
Manager.
Manager. Yeah.
There you go. So this report was drafted by the ODNI's NIM Aviation in conjunction with Aero. So
Mm.
basically, the National Intelligence Manager uh, of Aviation at the ODNI was working on this with Aero.
Oh,
It
so NIM
includes input.
is NIM Aviation a person or a group? Do you know?
I don't know. I will
Okay.
say
Yeah.
often that question doesn't mean as much as you think. Like we often refer to the ODNI, that is the office of a person, the Director of National Intelligence.
Right.
NIM Aviation may be the same thing. It's possible they're
Yeah.
referring to the office, even though the title seems to refer to a person. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
point is,
Okay. Cool.
this report includes input from the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the National Reconnaissance Office, the National Geospace Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, the U.S. Army, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Marine Corps, the U.S. Air Force, the FAA, the National Aeronautic NASA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric
Mm.
Administration, NOAA, the Department of Energy, the ODNI/NIM Emerging and Disruptive Technology,
Oh.
the ODNI National Counterintelligence and Security Center, and the ODNI National Intelligence Council. That is,
Oh my
if
gosh.
anyone was counting, 17 agencies that they were coordinating with for this report. So
Oh,
when we had
that's
heard
rough.
like, oh, every single person in the intelligence community has a finger in this pie
Yeah.
and is demanding changes, it makes a little more sense when you see this paragraph that is two sentences. This
Yeah.
report was made by the ODNI and Arrow, and these 17 agencies. What a nightmare. I
Yeah.
feel for
That's
Mr.
terrible.
Kirkpatrick, the director. That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Hopefully, as time goes on and he gets a bit more seniority, and like the
Mm.
the
Yeah.
the scope of the office is meant to be we have authority over this topic and coordinating
Right.
agencies. It'll get a little easier for him to kind of wrangle this herd of cats. But you can
Yeah.
imagine, new guy on the job, he's got to talk to the head of every single agency on the planet. They're all like, get out
Yeah.
of my office, man.
Yeah.
No, I'm not
Right.
signing this report.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. That is rough.
right. So getting to the actual report. First of all, heavy emphasis on flight safety. As you might
Yep.
expect, this is actually the line we've been seeing from Congress as well. Kind of
Yep.
the smokescreen that allows anyone serious to talk about aliens
Right.
and UFOs is you don't actually talk about aliens and UFOs. You talk about this is a danger to our
Yeah.
brave pilots, and I'm a supporter of our great military,
Uh-huh.
and therefore
Yeah.
we should look at aliens.
Now we can
So
talk about this. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so zero mention of extraterrestrial,
Yeah.
off-planet,
That's to be
nothing like
expected.
that. And I think there was a mention of it in the first report. Like it
Mm.
was kind of a throwaway, like, yeah, this catch-all category, which could be off-world stuff. They didn't even go there this time. It was just,
Yeah.
hey, we're looking at this because it's flight safety. Everybody chill.
Yeah. Right.
Which, okay, fair, as long as
Yeah.
you're looking at it.
You gotta get stuff done.
There are multiple references to destigmatization and assuming that the observations of their personnel and equipment are accurate.
Which
These
is
feel
interesting.
like weird lines, but I think it's important because,
Yeah.
again, historically,
Yeah.
the US government and military has not been great at taking the
So
topic seriously.
this is sort of like uh assume the sensors are correct until we prove otherwise instead of the other way
Mhm,
around.
mhm. Exactly. Yeah, and also the pilots, right? If a
Yeah.
pilot comes back and tells you they saw something, we're not going to start by assuming that they're off their rockers.
Right.
We just talked last week about David Fravor going to his debrief and they were all wearing tinfoil hats to make fun of
Right.
him,
Yeah.
right? So the destigmatization is a real thing. And the
Yeah.
reason they keep mentioning it is uh, it affects how many people are comfortable coming forward and reporting these things under the
Yeah.
chain of command. Pilots especially, if there's even a hint that
Yeah.
you're unsafe to fly, they will ground you in a second. So
Yep.
pilots are very sensitive to the idea that maybe they saw something that wasn't there. So
Yeah. We see that a lot
that's a big deal.
in space stuff as well. A lot of
Mhm.
astronauts will they have a real problem with presenteeism. Sorry,
Mhm. Mhm.
where astronauts will not tell if they're not feeling well or if they're sick,
Mhm.
because it may mean you don't get to go to space at all.
Right,
And
right.
so I can totally
And there's only
imagine.
so many slots. You could be waiting years for a
Oh
slot
yeah,
on a shuttle flight or an ISS flight.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, decades even. So yeah, you don't want to risk that. So I think the
Hmm.
destigmatization that's really crucial. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
There was a reference in here to part of their job is to synchronize and standardize collection, reporting, and analysis across all of the DoD
yeah,
agencies and all of the intelligence community agencies. So
yeah,
we're not just talking, okay, Navy and Air Force pilots have the same form to fill in. We're talking about we want to be able to gather reports from Department of Energy personnel, FAA personnel, NASA personnel, FBI, CIA, Marines, like anybody who's out there that falls under the DoD or IC umbrella, they want to be able to bring them all together. So
yeah,
again, this is one more spot where I'm prepared to throw them a little bit of a bone. They were not only spinning up an entirely new organization with a new director, with a new purview, also their mandate is you have to effectively coordinate between everyone.
yeah,
What a nightmare. I
yeah.
don't envy anybody who gets that.
Do we have any idea what this looks like? Like, I assume it's not some web form on the AARO's website, but um, I'm just curious if you've gotten any hints about
I don't
what
think
the
we do
challenge
know.
is there. Okay.
No, there was a report a few years ago about the Navy standardizing their procedures. And again,
Yeah.
that was in the context of there wasn't a procedure before, now
Right.
there is one. And I would expect that the Navy wasn't the only one who was doing it.
Yeah.
But what you had was all of these little fiefdoms all kind of set up their own process. And maybe they were asking different questions and
Yeah.
they were sending things to different places. They had different data retention policies. I want to be clear,
Yeah.
I'm pulling all of this out of thin air, but
Yeah.
you can imagine that it would not be standardized. And if your
Yeah.
office's job is to collate the information from all of them, I can imagine job one is just get everyone asking the same question,
Right.
giving you the same information, retaining the same stuff, sending the information to the same place, etc. Like you
I.
said, I have no
Yeah.
idea. Is that a web form?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Right.
The
Probably
military
not.
likes to do things in a complicated way. I'm sure they've got
Yeah.
some dramatically complicated process in place,
Yeah.
but their job was to standardize and synchronize. And I think that is another big, big task.
What'll be interesting to me is whether that actually helps out. Like we do this a lot in software, and most of the time they're different for a reason. Like the after action
Sometimes, yeah.
report of a Navy person on a
Hmm.
boat is going to be really different than an Air Force or a Space Force person. Like it's
Yeah.
fundamentally wildly different. I suppose there's probably commonalities, but I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking about trying to come up with one post-incident retro process across all of my different companies. I'm like, no, do not want, do not want to
Yeah.
do.
The the cynic in me assumes that this is a web form with a single checkbox at the top that's already checked that says
Uh,
it was a plastic bag.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you have to
yeah,
remember to
exactly.
uncheck that.
Yeah,
But no,
it's
I
going to
mean,
be like Jira
yeah,
too, right?
exactly. Yeah. So, I
It's
mean,
going to
the
be a
truth
mess.
is, no, I don't know. So I'm kind of done with my throwing them a bone section here. But I
Okay.
wanted to take a moment and give them a little bit of credit because as we're about to get
Yeah.
into, the report doesn't have a lot to it. And
No.
this is the second report in a row like that. And yeah, there's some circumstances and they're new and all that, but like this is kind of like, the new kid comes to class and it takes him a few weeks to kind of get up to speed, but after a while you're kind of like, hey man, you have to start doing your homework.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so let's talk about what they actually reported.
Okay.
They said that over the last year, and they got into this a lot. Um, so to recap, in the first report, the cutoff date was March 2021. They received 144 reports, of which they were able to identify one.
All
143 remained uncategorized.
right. That's
uh,
cool. And categorized
since
is a specific word, right?
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second.
Okay. All right.
So since then, Arrow received a total of 247 new UAP reports. So first of all, nearly double
Yeah.
what they got the first time through.
That's pretty
That's
crazy.
that's great. In addition to that, there were 119 reports that were from before that cutoff date, but either were just found or weren't reported to them until now. So these are
Yeah.
pre-March 2021 reports that they just didn't have access to before.
Yeah, I'm
All
imagining
told,
that they're like wandering through the office, like uncovering piles. They're like, "Oh shit, this is all reports." Like, did you
I'm
know?
sure,
No, I
right?
didn't know about this. Yeah,
Yeah. So that means there were 366 new reports this year, since March
yeah.
of last year to this year's report. Um, that means the total number of reports cataloged is 510. They go out of their way to repeat this like 7
Oh
times in
my
the
gosh,
document.
so
It's
many
bonkers. They're
times.
like, we
Yeah,
got 510 reports,
yeah.
510 reports. One thing that's really bothering me, uh, the news that we heard, that a lot of people were reporting this, more than half of the UAP reports were identified. We heard this from the New York Times, we heard this from a few
Identified
other
or
sources.
categorized?
Well, so they said identified, but there's two problems with that statement. First of all, more than half of the reports were not identified. More than half of the new reports were categorized. They appear to
Yeah,
have done nothing with the 143 uncategorized reports from the original, which means it's still more than half of the reports total are unidentified. But of course, they wanted to kind of cherry pick a little bit. So,
yeah,
of the 366 new reports, they were able to categorize more than half of them. Now, they distinguish later that categorized doesn't necessarily mean identified. Interestingly, they also say it doesn't necessarily mean unidentified. It's
yeah,
like they're basically like, we're not saying we know what this is. What we're saying is it had enough characteristics to make us feel comfortable that it was probably this, and we moved on and put our resources into the other things that we weren't able to identify. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's fine. If you look at something and it looks explainable and it does not exhibit any of the unusual high performance characteristics that we talk about, I'm okay with you saying, like, yeah, we don't know what this is, but it's not one of these weird tic tac things that we're trying
yeah.
to study.
Okay,
Um,
so
so, yeah.
categorized means like uh, so identified means we have figured out this was a plastic bag.
Mhm.
Categorized means we've said it is not a plastic bag and it had one of those five things that is really weird and impossible.
So, as I understand it, categorization is the language from the old report. So, you remember in the old report, they were like, here are
Oh,
the categories that these things could fall into. It could
okay.
be ours, it could be Russian,
Oh,
it could be
that.
a bird, it could be airborne debris, etc. So, what they said is of the new reports, 26 of them were probably drones. Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
We've been talking a lot about Chinese drones. There was a big hubbub. You and I actually haven't talked about this yet. In 2018, 2019,
Characterized.
a bunch of Navy ships were being harassed by unidentified objects. But in that case, the unidentified objects were very clearly quadcopter drones. Like there's
Yeah.
footage of them.
Yeah.
We don't know who they are, where they came from, how they're getting out to sea and harassing them, but they are very obviously human technology in that case. So 26 of these reports were probably drones. 6 of the reports were airborne clutter, which
I
they
love
gave
that
as
term.
examples: birds, weather, or plastic bags. I
Yeah.
get the sense this is the other
Yeah.
checkbox at the bottom of the form. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
saw a weird bird, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Never seen a bird like this.
All right.
All
And,
right.
how many plastic bags are uh, Navy Super Hornet pilots running into at 20,000 feet? I don't know.
Apparently
Maybe.
6.
Apparently 6. The real interesting category is 163 of the 366 new reports were balloons or balloon-like
Balloon-like.
entities.
What, what is a
Okay, first of
balloon-like
all,
entity?
how many balloons are out there that pilots are running
Oh,
into? That's weird, man.
okay. So
Uh,
I can partially answer that. A lot.
okay,
Like a
yeah,
lot of balloons are up there. Like
okay,
just in Florida, just at like one airport alone, they're doing sounding balloons at different like altitudes every single day.
uh-huh.
But
Oh,
then they're also like going up and they'll pop at some point and then fall back down.
right, right.
So there's definitely like
Okay,
so, and that's just
got it.
like one airport. That's not talking about how much
No,
NASA
that
is
makes
doing
sense.
or how much NOAA
Yeah,
is doing.
and some of them are going
Like,
to get lost or drift off
yeah,
course. Okay, got it.
yeah. So there's a lot
Um,
every single day.
the weird thing is, it was balloons and
Balloon.
balloon-like entities. A
Yeah,
lot of people were picking on the word entity here. That is a very
yeah,
unusual choice. I don't,
yeah.
and they distinguish it from plastic bags. That's different.
Right,
Like I would think, oh, okay, maybe that means like a plastic bag that's kind of aloft, it's
right.
inflated. No, what is a
Yeah,
balloon-like entity? Who knows? And
yeah,
apparently there were 163 of those. So thank you
yeah.
for the context. That was really helpful.
Yeah, I do wonder if the balloon-like entity is like, well, we don't know what it was. It was probably a popped
Yeah, it
balloon. It's
behaved
moving
like a
real
balloon.
quick,
Yeah,
um, and it has a little box
or
attached to it. Like,
it
I
might
don't
be a
know.
regular balloon, right? Like, because
Yeah.
one of the
Oh
things they
yeah.
talk about is
Mylar.
flight performance and capacity. So it didn't look like a balloon, but it was drifting with the wind at a stable elevation. It wasn't moving. It wasn't
Sure.
reacting. Sure, balloon-like. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, of the remaining, 171 remain uncategorized.
Okay.
For the record, that's one every other day. So there's still a lot of
Interesting.
not easily categorized
Hmm.
reports, not to
That's good
mention
context.
the 143 that remained uncategorized from last year. So
Yeah. Or
again,
previous
more than
years, right?
half. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's
That's a
not
good
just
point from
last year.
last year's report. But yeah,
Yeah.
so of the 500, I've already lost the number, the 500
Yeah.
total reports that they
510,
got,
right? Yeah.
more than half of them are still uncategorized, unidentified. Um,
Uncategorized. I see them using the word characterized. Is that the new word?
I'm probably saying the wrong word. It probably was characterized, but
All right.
I think of
Got
it the
it.
same way.
Okay. Great. Yeah.
Of those, some of them, I'm so mad at that phrase, some of them had unusual flight characteristics and performance capabilities.
Mm.
Um, So, to my mind, based on the context we have, that's talking about the 5 observables. That's talking about
Yeah.
like these are the weird ones, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, 171 of these new reports were uncategorized, but 6 of them were hypersonic traveling between space and the ocean and pulling G-force turns at 90-degree angles. Like those are the ones I want to hear about. And they're just like,
Yeah.
yes, some of them had weird characteristics. Well, how many,
Like
man?
how many?
Like,
What was weird about them? Give us. Yeah.
like I get they're probably not going to tell us what's weird about them, but you could have put a number on it. You could have said
Yeah.
of the 171 that remained uncategorized, 5
Three.
had unusual
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
characteristics. or 160 of them. I like that's valuable context. Was it most of them? Was it a few of them? Like, so I'm a little grumpy that they didn't give us just that little bit of information. Like
Yeah,
I get that we're not going to get new videos. We're not going to get
right.
a description of the weird ones, but at least tell us like how many there were. I feel like that could have been done quite easily.
Yeah, there's a line in the executive summary that I really like. That it's just like full of mystery for me. It's additional information is provided in the classified version of this report. I would
Uh-huh.
love to know if that sum was like a number in the classified
Right.
version or, you know,
Right.
what additional info. But
Hmm.
yeah. Anyways, carry on.
Yeah. Well, and we found out that last year they were able to get access to some of the classified version,
Hmm.
and it included things like an appendix covering commonly reported UAP shapes, which
Oh,
interestingly is
interesting.
classified. We talked about this before, but it's classified because if you let people know these are the shapes we see that we think are UAP,
Right.
Russia's immediately going to go develop a drone that looks like one of those, so it gets lumped in under
Right.
UFOs whenever we see it, right? So
Yeah.
I, it's weird, but it kind of makes sense why shapes would be classified information.
Right.
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah. So again, the one bit of good news I saw in here was they said we were able to identify and basically discard and ignore about half of the new reports that came in.
Okay.
The reason I'm encouraged by that is they explicitly said that enables us to this initial characterization better enables Arrow and ODNI to efficiently and effectively leverage resources against the remaining uncharacterized and unattributed UAP reports.
Okay.
Some of these uncharacterized appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities and require further analysis. If you're a new office that we're hearing word on the street, they're a little understaffed.
Sure.
I'm actually in favor of you going like, listen, guys, you actually care about the weird ones. Those are the ones we want to investigate. We don't want to waste our time confirming that this thing
Yeah.
that looks, smells, and behaves like a balloon was a balloon. Like,
Right.
just trust us. It looked like a balloon, and there was nothing remarkable about it. It got filed as a UAP report, but that doesn't necessarily mean it warrants further study.
Sure.
Whereas this incident over here is real weird, and we want to put all our time and money into it. That's the kind of
Yeah.
decisions I do want them making. So
Yeah.
I'm
That
actually okay with that.
it does seem like that's a good view on that line. The another way of looking at it is they spent all their time categorizing these three things and maybe
Mhm.
ran out of time to
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
categorize the rest. It's hard
yeah.
to know, but I guess with only
No,
three
it's true.
months, like, what are you going to get done?
But that gets back to what I'm saying, right? Like next year's report better be a banger. Like this year,
Yeah,
like, all right, yeah, you're new, you're dealing with coordination issues. By next year, you better have your act together.
yeah,
So one last note on the
yeah.
report. There was a line in here that may seem really unusual if you find it without any context.
Okay.
At the very end of the report, they say flight safety concerns and health implications.
Hmm.
Now we've talked about flight safety part. So UAP poses safety of flight, collision hazard, air assets, requiring operators to adjust flight patterns.
Right.
Sure, all of that makes sense. To date, there have been no reported collisions between U.S. aircraft and UAP. Okay, good to know
Although
that.
near misses.
We've heard a lot about near misses, but good to know there have not actually been any collisions.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's good.
then, without batting an eye, they roll into to date, or regarding health concerns, there have also been no encounters with UAP confirmed to contribute directly to adverse health related effects to the observers. Acknowledging that health related effects may appear at any time after an event occurs, Arrow will track any reported health implications related to UAP should they emerge. That's a weird line to
That
put in
is
there.
interesting.
The context is the NDAA explicitly said, you got to tell us if there's any health effects, because one of the rumors they were hearing was that there are military personnel who have, for example, been at a military base with nukes
Mhm.
and UFOs were surveilling them and later they got cancer or something like that. They said it was because of the UAP. So
It's
Congress is
not all
like,
that
hey man,
nuclear
do you,
material in the warhead,
well,
but you know.
cancer is maybe a bad example, but
Yeah,
there are actually some weird
yeah,
incidences like this. So Congress put it in there. You have to tell us if there's any health effects. So
yeah,
it seems really funny to have it kind of come out of nowhere. Like, as far as we know, no one
yeah,
got sick from seeing a UFO, but it's there for a reason. And it's kind of
yeah,
funny that all it gets is a, I don't know, we didn't see anything
yeah.
directly causing
I
it. Like,
guess we'll
well,
watch for it.
okay,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, you
I mean,
probably aren't.
yeah, but like the I don't know, the people working in a nuke silo or whatever are exposed to so much worse
Yes,
every single day.
sure.
Like not even just the nuclear material, like
Mhm.
the stuff that rocket is full of, just like I don't know anything about our nukes, but a lot of the old nukes were using hydrazine, which is just like the worst chemical for humans in
Yeah,
existence. Um, yeah, so I feel like
yeah,
any
agreed,
health
agreed.
concerns are just going to be like, there's so much worse here.
Yeah, again, nuke silos was a bad example, but
Sure.
absolutely acknowledge this is a complicated topic. I get that they're kind of like, yeah, I don't know, we didn't see anything directly, but mostly I just
Hmm.
thought it was funny. You got this single
Yeah.
throwaway sentence like, you told us to tell you if there were any health effects. We didn't find any.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. But
okay,
it's cool. I hope they do keep watching it. I think that'd be fascinating to see a study of that.
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've got some reactions from the community here, but before we do that, you said you had some thoughts about this. I would love to hear what you thought because
Cool.
when we talked yesterday, I told you this will be a little bit different than our normal episodes where I'm just gonna show up and talk at you about a
Yeah.
topic and see what you think. I want you to read it ahead of time. So you had your homework to do. So you read it, you had thoughts.
Hmm.
What did you think?
Okay. I'm going to start with a softball here. And it's more of a
Mhm.
gripe than a comment. And also kind of a love. Uh, so the this is going to be a kerning question. Just going straight to font analysis here. So
Okay.
the report is like very well structured, well formatted. The font choice is like totally acceptable. But then at the top and bottom of the page, they've chosen the most typewriter font to put unclassified. And like I almost feel like they like it feels like the F is just a little bit off. Like they purposefully chose a typewriter font that is not like whatever the normal mono width font. Like at first I actually thought it was an image, but then I realized I can search it and select it. But I'm
Yeah,
just fascinated by that choice. And I do want to know if they have a
yeah.
special font that mimics old typewriters. Um, I just
I
think
mean,
that'd be
it's
fun to
just
find out.
Courier. Like
It
Courier
feels
is
different.
like a
Yeah.
standard monospace font. But
Yeah.
yes, I agree. What I don't have is historical context. Like
Yeah. Right.
I want to acknowledge I'm speaking out of my ass here. I see
Okay.
something like that, and my guess is when they used to make copies of documents, classified and unclassified, they would stamp them, and someone had to
Yeah.
come along and do that. This is representing that in the kind of military document formatting vernacular, it's understood that classified or unclassified should be written in a monospace font at the top. I wouldn't be surprised if there was that guideline because I agree, it is a little funny that everything else is kind of in nice,
Yeah.
basic fonts. And then this one's kind of like, I don't know, slap a monospace on it.
Yeah. I'm not even sure it's monospace. Anyways, but it does make me wonder if they have like document scanners too that look for this exact signature or something to tag docs.
Could be.
Anyways, I found that delightful. Um, I think my main uh, so my observation of the thing was that it feels like the kind of thing I would write if I was pressed to come up with a report but hadn't actually gotten anything done. Um,
Yeah.
like like the report, my read of it is like, yeah, we gathered a bunch of reports. We kind of categorized some of them, but not really. Also, we set up our office and decorated the walls, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're gonna watch some stuff. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Um, and then they repeated that in three different sections: the executive
Mhm,
summary,
mhm.
and then the main body, and then the conclusion are actually all the same exact document.
Yeah,
So
100%.
it feels like that high school report where you're like
Yeah, yeah,
padding the
yeah. Put
paragraphs.
it in double space,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
increase the page margins, yeah,
Yeah,
all the things you gotta, yeah.
yeah.
I completely agree. Like at least half, I would guess maybe even two-thirds of the actual body of writing in this is them stating the expectations that were held of them.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
told us to look into X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z means X, Y, and Z. We looked into it and we found minimal statement.
yeah. Exactly. Also, there are 37 citations at the end. Ignore those 6 pages. You know.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so my main question of this whole thing, and I don't expect you to be able to answer it, is why was it delayed? Um,
We don't know.
like,
I don't think we
what
ever will
could
know.
what could be offensive in this? There's nothing in here. Um,
Well, the
or maybe there
conspiracy
isn't now.
theorist wants to say exactly, exactly what has
Okay.
been expunged from this after 37 rounds of
Okay.
blackout
Fair.
fighting with the CIA. Who knows?
Okay, so the conspiracy theorist is like, oh, this was actually 40 pages long, and now it's only 12. Um, okay.
I mean, practically speaking, if I had to put money on it, I would bet that it looked basically like this the whole time.
Yeah.
And maybe there was a little bit more language in it, and some of that was stripped out. Like maybe there
Mm,
was a bit of language in it saying we saw 27 cases involving unexplainable G-force velocities or something like that, and
hmm
that got stripped out. Maybe there was a line mentioning that one of the categorizations might have included off-world vehicles. They're like, you can't put that in there. I
Yeah.
have no idea,
Yeah.
right? But given that it was 3 months late,
Yeah.
given that they had to coordinate with 17 agencies, sure, it's fun to imagine that, there's some guy in the Aero office who's like, we're getting the truth out to the people, and he was just kept down by the man.
Yeah.
More likely, I think it probably looked like some version of this the whole time, and they were just quibbling over certain words.
Yeah. It does smack of Hanlon's razor. Like, um,
Mhm.
yeah, never ascribe to malice that which could be just poor performance or
Right.
whatever the phrase is. Said better. Yeah, let's edit
Incompetence.
that in. Edit
Never ascribe to malice what could be ascribed to incompetence.
incompetence. All right, good, excellent. We're going to
Yeah.
keep that edit and just strip out everything I said. Okay. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
that's all I had. At first I was. I'm actually glad we went through your notes first because after reading it and realizing the three sections were mostly the same, I found myself just reading the executive summary and I kind of missed
mhm.
the small amount of categorization that they did do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was one of my
There
questions that you answered.
and I want to be clear, like me pulling out those notes at the beginning, like in case anybody's listening to this, like, oh, I should go read the report and see what Scott left out. Like, I didn't leave anything out. That was the
No,
report.
that was it.
you,
Yeah,
you can feel free to go read it, but honestly, like, it is a lot of padding.
yeah,
There's a really funny quote that I found on Reddit that I want to share. So,
yeah,
shifting into community reactions,
yeah. Do it.
as you can expect, the Reddit community and Twitter communities are
I've gone
complete mixed
ballistic.
bag on this,
Yeah,
right? I've said this the last few episodes, right? There's kind of two camps here. That one's like, oh my god, this is just proof that it's all a conspiracy. The military's out to get us, yada yada yada. And other people are all smug and insufferable, like you sweet summer child. Why would you ever expect anything good to happen to us ever?
yeah, yeah,
And nobody is surprised that the report is bad, and they are all
yeah,
jumping straight to like it was never going to be good. I'm like, I don't
yeah.
know, like it wasn't terrible. It's
No,
not great. It's very much more of the same. It
yeah,
definitely doesn't break any new ground. I'm gonna be pissed if next year's is the same. But like we covered context at the beginning. But
Yeah.
this guy on Reddit, so Lounge Singer on Reddit said, I'm impressed. They took 8 pages to say, one, you asked us to keep track of UAPs. We did that. Two, you asked us to coordinate across agencies. We will try to do that. We will do so by coordinating our communications on the subject in question. We feel good about our chances of actually being able to do this eventually. Three, you asked us to provide an assessment of these reported UAPs. So here goes. 366 new cases have been reported since March 2021. Of these, 195 seemed like we could easily explain them away by looking at them closely. But we haven't actually looked at these closely yet, but we plan on doing so. Instead of actually explaining them away, we decided it would be better to focus our attention on the 171 that we won't be able to explain away, but we haven't really had a great opportunity to look at these either. We're working on it though.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Oh my gosh.
And finally, anyway, it might be a bad thing that these UAPs are in our airspace, since our pilots might crash into them, or since they might be spying on us. Because of this, we're taking this seriously, like we've said a few times. And we look forward to taking this seriously by using science to look at them, by communicating and partnering with other agencies that are also looking at this, and by leveraging our partnership to become good partners with the people you told us to partner with. Also, synergy. Maybe? Is synergy one of the meaningless buzzwords business type people use? Like leverage? If
Yep.
so, yes, we're going to do synergy.
We're doing that.
Here's what I love about this.
Yep.
He totally skewered the report, made total fun of it, and also managed to accurately include all the takeaways.
Yeah, exactly. It was perfect. Yeah. Yep, that is.
Yeah, I'm
so
impressed.
you're right. Like, there's no reason to download this report. I don't know, it's interesting reading. It's a little confusingly written, but yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. A couple other quotes from different people on Reddit.
Yeah.
One guy was pointing out that there was a little bit of mixed signals going on between we trust our sources, we assume our pilots know what they're talking about and have accurate memories and stuff, and also, but it was all balloons and garbage. And his funny line was, we have only the best people reporting plastic bags maneuvering at high rates of speed.
Yeah, what
And
was
then
what was the term? Hypersonic geese or whatever, or high performance geese?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he went on to say 171 reports, of which some of these uncharacterized UAP appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities and require further analysis. We'll talk about burying the lead. Those ones are the whole point of this report. And it's one
Yeah.
throwaway sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a excellent quote from Chuck. Have I told you about UFO Jesus yet?
No.
Okay. This guy's actual username is Post Disclosure World. He has a Twitter account.
Okay.
He has a YouTube channel. His videos are they're incredible. Like I
Yeah.
can't really do them justice. He's an amazing guy. He presents really good information. Most of the Chris Mellon quotes I had a couple episodes ago were lifted from a video of his because he was at the conference where Chris was saying this stuff. But he also does things like he'll be reading a quote from someone and then he suddenly cuts to a clip of himself standing in front of a weird background with a lot of reverb on his voice. He goes, "The house of cards is falling, baby." He ends most of his episodes with, "I'm now going to play the disclosure flute to cleanse your soul." And then he does, and he plays the flute, and it's amazing. Anyway.
Okay. Wait. What was his other name? Because I typed UFO Jesus, and that did not come up with the right answers.
His nickname is UFO Jesus because he has a beard and long hair, and
Okay.
he kind of looks like Jesus. Yeah.
But
But his actual handle is Post Disclosure on Twitter or
Okay.
Post Disclosure World. Anyway, he posted a tweet that I really liked. He said, listen, had the UFO report thrown cold water on the three UFO videos from 2017 or debunked them, skeptics would rightfully be filled with glee. But
Sure.
that didn't happen, which some people were saying was going to happen,
Yeah.
which betrays logic if the US government wants this story to go away.
Sure.
I would argue they do want it to go away, but they know it can't.
Mm.
I think that is a really optimistic way of viewing this. This
Yeah.
is a department of people who desperately want to not be talking about this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Congress won't let them not talk about it, so they are going to drag their feet and do the bare minimum required of them. And in a weird way, that's encouraging because
Yeah.
they so clearly don't want to talk about it that if
Yeah.
they could debunk it, they would be on it in a heartbeat. You know it.
Yeah.
But the days of easily dismissible explanations like, oh, it was Venus or swamp gas or weather balloons. Well, I guess weather balloons are still in the running, but the kind
Clearly.
of blue book style dismissiveness doesn't really
Yeah.
fly anymore. So since they can't come out and do a really good job debunking it, they're kind of left to just kind of like, I don't know, there's some stuff that
Yeah.
might be UFOs. you know, I saw one person say that the report has the same vibe as when you ask your teenager to clean their room, and you've been asking them to do it for a while, and they
Mhm.
finally agree to do it. And the door is closed, and you can hear noise in there, and you know they're not doing a good job, right? Like they're like kicking stuff under the bed and like shoving things into the closet, but they are technically cleaning. And you ask them
Yeah.
through the door, like, "Are you picking up in there?" They're like, "Yeah, I'm cleaning." Like this very much has that vibe. Like they're not
Yeah.
doing a good job, but they are doing
Technically doing a job. Yeah. Absolutely.
it.
And you know
Right.
what? For where we were, that's okay. That's progress.
Yeah.
Being,
Now, the last thing I want to talk about is UFO Daddy, Chris Mellon, our man with the plan. Chris Mellon has rapidly become one of my favorite sources on the UFO
okay.
topic. He is so level-headed. He
Yeah.
understands government. He is pushing for disclosure and change in responsible ways. I really, really like the guy. He wrote a blog post called Key Takeaways from the 2023 ODNI UAP Report. Um, and he makes a few observations that might be easy to miss. One, as we mentioned earlier, the total number of reports doubled in 1 year.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
You know, that's a big deal. No matter what the reports were, as they point out with the destigmatization, clearly something has changed and the
Yeah.
process is happening because we did get more than double the number
Yeah.
of reports.
Yeah.
He points out, and again, I have reason to believe he knows what he's talking about, that Arrow seems to be doing a good job in obtaining cooperation
Hmm.
across military and intelligence communities. And
Makes
it's
sense.
noteworthy that one of the agencies they're coordinating with is the Air Force, which we
Yeah.
have heard rumors for years that they are dragging their feet, refusing to
Mhm.
participate. These guys have the authority to go to them and demand that they comply. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do a good job of complying. But
Sure.
Chris Mellon says it looks like Arrow is doing a good job of getting all these agencies that don't necessarily want to participate, maybe have wildly different viewpoints
Yeah.
on the topic, whether they want to be involved at all, and getting them to at least give all the information to Arrow so they can
Yeah.
evaluate.
Yeah. And I think that like all the reports that they found, like I don't actually think they were wandering through the office looking for paperwork. I think that they've
Right, right.
recruited some other agency that was like, oh yeah, we got a stash of those. Like here, you can have our
Mm-hmm.
files. Like I think that's
Yeah, or
uh, uh,
or even more accurately, they mentioned they were working with like Department of Energy and stuff,
yeah,
intelligence community agencies. I'd be willing to bet the UAP task force did not reach out to them. Maybe they
exactly.
reached out to the Department of Energy for the first time. They were like, "Oh yeah, we're glad you called.
Yeah, we
We've got
got
a
loads of
stack of them.
these.
Here you go."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So yeah, I want to close with three quotes from Chris Mellon. So
Okay.
these are the last three paragraphs of his article.
Okay.
Uh, First of all, he says, unfortunately, this is after he spent the first three paragraphs kind of talking up Arrow and talking about the good they're doing and what's good about the report. He says, unfortunately, the report presents the bare minimum of information needed to comply with Congress's request for an unclassified report. In some regards, the report is even less informative than the initial preliminary report released in June of 21. For example, the preliminary report disclosed the number of incidents that were confirmed by multiple sources,
Mm,
e.g., radar, visual, infrared. Moreover, New York Times columnist Julian Barnes, citing unnamed American officials, claims that some of the incidents involving U.S. military assets proved to be Chinese drones. That information may be in the classified report, but it's not in this unclassified report.
mm,
There is also no indication if in the report if any of the 314 events were in space or
mm.
underwater or were
Right.
attributable to foreign governments. All unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets to what we were talking about earlier, right? Like the information that's here isn't bad, but there's the stuff that's missing is notable by its absence. Like there's big question marks throughout this report that they kind of pointedly do not address because they didn't explicitly have to, and it's really frustrating that they kind of chose to do the bare minimum.
Right. Yeah.
This next bit is where Chris gets a little snarky, and I
Okay.
love it. UFO Daddy, he's not mad, he's just disappointed.
Just disappointed.
Says the government again demonstrated its unique and uncanny ability to transform an inherently fascinating topic into a vexing bureaucratic jargon. If the intent was to make the report as anodyne, unremarkable, and boring as possible, the authors did exceptionally well. I say this partly in jest, but in truth, it appears efforts were made to minimize the impact of the data. For example, there is an incredibly stark contrast between the stunning testimony of UAP capabilities reported by Navy pilots, e.g., something not from this Earth, and the flaccid UAP report language, which by contrast asserts some of these uncharacterized UAP appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities and require further analysis.
Yeah. Yeah. Unusual
Damn,
instead
Chris!
of, yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. And unusual is such a terrible word. Like,
Right?
and it's true. It is like, I don't know. I have a lot more I want to say, but all of it's offensive. So I'm going to leave it.
Okay. And in closing, he kind of recaps the good news, but he drops a banger in the last
Okay.
sentence here. He says, "Okay, in sum, the good news is the UAP issue is gaining traction and acceptance within the government. Some incidents have already been resolved, and our nation may already be safer as a result. For example, if it's true that some of the incidents off the coast of California were identified as Chinese drones, that's a huge breakthrough for U.S. intelligence that would not have occurred
Mm,
absent this new focus on collecting and investigating UAP reports. With continued congressional support, it is reasonable to expect valuable new insights to occur. Again, as we're seeing daily in Ukraine, effective aerospace surveillance has never been more challenging or important. National security will surely benefit. Let's also not lose sight of the fact that science may benefit as well.
mm.
Having participated in debriefs of numerous military aviators and radar operators, I believe this is a genuine possibility. Indeed, I've spoken with several credible people who claim the US has evidence of alien technology in its possession. These are indeed exciting times.
Oh, hey!
Hey!
He must be listening to our podcast. That's what's
That's
happening
the
there.
only possible explanation I
Only
can think
possible one.
of. But yeah, man, dropping a little banger there. Like I've
Yeah,
talked to multiple credible witnesses who say we have UFO technology.
yeah.
That it's so funny because I saw someone on Reddit like trying to tear this sentence to pieces. They're like, why is it written so weird? Why would he say alien? alien just means it's a foreign government. Why wouldn't he say extraterrestrial? And what does technology even mean?
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, bro, he stated this in the most plain language possible. Like, he avoided doing
Yeah.
what the report is doing, like unidentified
Yeah.
technology. Like, no, he said alien tech, man.
Yeah. Right. It's
Doesn't
not
get
afraid.
more clear than that.
Yeah, it's like saying Voldemort. Like,
Right? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, UAP report, little bit of a disappointment.
yeah.
They are at least not backtracking, which
Yeah.
I know that's one step short of nothing. But considering that for years my expectation when it comes to the government is to be dismissed and demeaned, like
Yeah.
just not getting that feels like, oh,
Yeah.
they're actually saying there's something up there. Holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, it's not nothing. It could be a lot better. We'll see about next year. Um,
Yep.
are there any other things coming up that we should be looking forward to? Other
Ooh,
disclosure
that's a
efforts
great
or
question, Chuck.
yeah.
You didn't know that I had this. I had just made the decision not to include it because it's a little bit of a detour, but you set me up so nicely. Uh,
Well, I live to segue.
so we've talked about, in the NDA, all the language around whistleblower protection and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, Something that I think a lot of people didn't understand is the whistleblower protection was not for you to come testify directly to Congress. There was an element of that, but basically you already have protection to go to Congress. The whistleblower protection was if you follow the appropriate steps, meaning report it to Arrow, and bad things happen, we've got your back. And in addition, if you are called before Congress to testify, you don't get to lie to us. But that part I was a little unclear on, the idea that you actually are supposed to go through the proper channels first, meaning report to Arrow. So anyway, there was a tweet from Thursday, just after the UFO report dropped, standforbetter.org, which is like kind of a government activism group. They said, I can confirm from a source directly involved with the UAP disclosure effort in Washington that this month several people are testifying in a skiff with
Mm.
Arrow director Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick regarding historical UFO crash retrieval programs.
What? Okay. Cool. So
It's
is this
happening.
yeah, is this are we going to see like televised Congress testimony or do we know?
Ooh, another good question, Chuck. I Okay, here's the thing.
I'm just excited.
Listeners,
I'm just happen to be
I
asking all
know.
the right
I
questions, I think.
You might think that me and Chuck talk about this topic all the time. The truth is, we actually don't talk about it much anymore because we
Oh
kind
yeah.
of want to save our energy for
Yeah.
the podcast.
It's been driving me
But I
crazy
am
for days.
still but I'm still super enthusiastic about the topic, which means I'm on Reddit and Twitter all the
hmm
time looking at stuff, and I come across things and I'll kind of make a note to bring it up. So it's always kind of surprising when Chuck asks one of these questions that you would think I had prepped him for. Like, okay, Chuck, I want to talk about X, so make sure you ask me a question like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, no.
Uh, so, a couple of things about congressional disclosure. A little bit of cold water has been poured on the idea that we're going to see public testimony.
Okay.
I don't think
Makes
that's
sense.
likely. The way this whole thing is set up is very much closed door hearings, SCIF, a secure compartmentalized
Oh,
facility,
that's what Skiff is. Okay.
that kind of thing. Yeah, so these things are happening behind closed doors and privately. And
Okay.
that is a really positive step forward because so far Congress has been completely iced out and
Yeah.
Arrow is brand new. So the fact that anybody is talking to Arrow and that anybody is talking to Congress is a good step. But that doesn't mean that it's going to come out to us.
Yeah.
But there is a good historical analog here. Um, I I'm gonna very briefly mention here, and I'm kind of dating myself. Anybody out there that's a little older than Chuck and I may be more familiar with this, and you're gonna roll your eyes that we're not familiar with this. But
Yeah.
in the 80s, there was something called the Church Committee, in the Congress, and
Hmm.
this had to do with finding out that the CIA had been doing all sorts of awful stuff for
Uh,
years,
yeah.
and basically they had kind of a truth and reconciliation thing, like it is time to come forward, and they had to come testify to Congress.
Hmm.
Same kind of deal. In theory, this all happened behind closed doors. In practice, what happened was it almost all leaked. We
Yeah.
found
Right.
out about it and it all hit the news.
Right.
So I've heard a lot of people talking about we could see a church committee style thing here, where as Congress finds out more and more what the military has been doing, how they've been lied to, how
Sure.
inappropriate these black book programs have gotten with no surveillance, they start delving into it and holding hearings. And we don't see official public releases, but we do find out some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And this is where my curiosity as an individual battles with my desire to see the right thing happen. Am I
Yeah.
more motivated to find out me as Scott, or am I more motivated that the government knows and is handling it properly, as opposed to right now, where my belief is these are effectively rogue groups within the government. They have been able to take advantage of initially legitimate compartmentalization and have now gotten to a point where they have these huge black ops budgets that are completely unsupervised. And this stuff should be for the benefit of all mankind. So,
Right.
what I kind of expect to happen is as Congress finds out more, they're going to be hopping mad about it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
we've already seen a little bit of this. With the little bit that they have found out, we have seen these freaking like laser crafted amendments to the
Yeah.
NDA. They're all clearly based on we
Right.
got some real good information telling us that X is happening, and you need to tell us about X.
Yeah.
Again, the first thing that Arrow is supposed to do is they've got 18 months to compile a historic report on UAP programs going back to 1945, which would the reason that date got shifted, 47 was Roswell. 45, 2 years before, was an incident you and I haven't talked about yet, but Jacques Vallée just wrote a big book about called
Okay.
Trinity. And it's about a different UFO crash, also in New
Oh.
Mexico, that was, according to the witnesses, also recovered by the military.
Okay.
So they
Interesting.
rolled the date back a couple of years because they heard about this one, right? Like they
Yeah.
didn't pick 45 at random. That
Yeah.
year was because of that book. So
Okay. Interesting.
when you ask what's next, are we going
Yeah.
to see any of this stuff? I hope we do, but I would, if I had to put money on it, I would bet that it all stays closed doors and we continue to infer the shape of what
Sure.
Congress is hearing through the
Right.
actions that they take.
So like I'm imagining like a shadow play where they're in the
Hmm.
skiff
Hmm.
and we're kind of like trying to read lips of the shadows and it's just not working. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so it won't be televised, but hopefully we'll see some like some little leaks around the edges, or some outcomes that infer the shape soonish. Do you know when that's happening?
I mean, to be clear, I don't know anything. Everything
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
reporting to you is what I'm hearing other
yeah.
people
Okay,
say
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
they're hearing. Yeah, like, so who knows? Maybe
Okay,
there will be televised hearings. Maybe there'll be nothing. But
yeah,
the what I'm hearing from people like Ross Coulthart and Chris Mellon is that closed door testimony to Congress is already happening. We've got this tweet saying
oh,
Sean
okay.
Kirkpatrick of Arrow is already getting secure testimony about crash
Wow,
retrieval programs.
already.
Um,
Okay.
there was some senator who just today was asked, like, is there anything like crash retrieval material? And he said, my understanding is the material that was retrieved was unremarkable.
What?
And then kind of like
What?
looked startled and moved on. So if I had to guess, we're going to see more of that kind of stuff. But I don't know any more than you do. I'm just kind of repeating what I'm
Yeah,
hearing. I would love it if this whole thing blew up tomorrow. If Congress came
yeah.
out like, y'all are never going to believe what we heard.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Okay, cool.
Like,
Um, so I remember the reason I was asking about this. I remember like right before the January 6th interviews or testimonials were supposed to happen. You were saying that that was supposed to be uh, public testimonial about UAP that reasonably got shuffled back. Um,
That's what I was hearing at the time. I was hearing at the time that they wanted to do more UFO hearings and that it was delayed so that the January 6th
yeah,
committee could finish up because they were basically sucking all the air out of the room.
totally.
Now that that
So,
stuff's wrapping up, maybe we'll get more public hearings. I
okay,
haven't heard anything about it since then,
cool. Yeah. All right. Well, good. I will look forward to all the crazy news and tweets that come out of this. One other question. Do we need to cover the NDAA at all? Is there any juice in there or anything interesting about that?
We did, Chuck.
I mean, clear. Okay. Oh, that was right before break, wasn't it?
It was, yes,
Okay.
to
Yeah.
your credit. But yeah,
I went on
we
vacation
talked about
after
the
that.
NDAA.
Okay.
So real quick recap. Increased congressional reports and funding. So the thing we were just talking about, they wanted that historical report. They wanted more information back to World War II. Um,
Okay.
Chris
Oh
Mellon
yeah.
said they're getting more funding for Arrow, so it's going to be well resourced, unlike the UAP task force.
Yeah.
The whistleblower protection that we talked
Right.
about, that was an NDAA amendment. Um, and then we talked about whether it'll remain classified. And that's where I got this last bit is Chris was saying the process involves reporting to Congress. The unclassified reports that we're waiting for will remain as long as the office is in
Yeah.
effect. The whistleblower protections will remain in classified channels, but will be delivered to multiple committees in the Hill. What congressional leadership does with the information at that point is up to
Yeah.
them. They have procedures and they have the possibility, if they want to take the information public, or declassify it. They're rarely used,
Yeah.
but they could do that.
They do have
So I
that.
think basically what Chris Mellon has been angling for is to get the information flowing through the proper channels, get it to Congress, where right now it's all black books, secret programs. Let's get it out in the light of day. That doesn't necessarily mean public. It might still be classified and a
Yeah.
limited subset of who gets to know it, but it at least goes to the correct people. And then they can make decisions about whether, oh, yeah, this was properly classified and should remain that
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
but now we're in the loop. Or
Yeah.
what the hell do you think you've been doing?
Yeah. Okay.
This
I
stops today.
I'm simultaneously super embarrassed that I asked that question and also super impressed that you just had that, like, you had those 5 bullet points like nailed down. You're like, oh yeah, I'll recap it for you. It's fine. Here, it's like,
I mean, all I did was scroll down in the note stock that I already had open to the
oh,
episode where we
right,
covered this
yeah,
topic. But yes, that's fair.
it makes sense. Makes sense.
Are you gonna edit this out of the final cut?
No, no, I think that's part of the editor's duty is to leave all their own embarrassing crap in there and cut everyone else's. Uh, yeah. I just had one other question and I think I've lost it. So, um, yeah. Okay. What's next? What's our next episode about? Do you know yet?
I don't know yet. There is a document that came out recently called Loose Threads, which
Hmm.
I have not actually read yet, full
Okay.
disclosure. I listened to a podcast about it. But basically, it's kind of a follow up to the Admiral Wilson stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
as I understand it, the document kind of delves into information that has come out since the Admiral Wilson document leaked that supports it and corroborates it.
Awesome.
Um, but
Okay.
I don't have a lot
Interesting.
more, and I don't know if I'll actually, excuse me, I don't know if I'll actually be ready to talk about it by next episode.
Okay. Well,
But
we
yeah,
got a little time.
we got a
Okay.
little time. Chuck,
Yeah.
thank you for jumping on and changing our schedule. I'm glad we did this.
Of course. Yeah.
As always, it's just if any of this stuff is true, man,
Oh.
it's a
Whew.
very exciting time. I know we end every episode by saying this, but I'm so pleased with that tagline
Right?
because it so perfectly encapsulates how I feel
Yeah.
about this. Do I
Yeah.
believe all of this? I don't know. I'm probably sitting at 80 or 90%. And I accept and understand that you are probably at a lower percentage than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. A
That's
little.
fine. but I think we're at the same place where it's like, man,
Yeah.
if any of this is true,
Any of
like,
it.
how could you not want to talk about this? It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Well, and now that Chris Mellon is listening to our podcast, I mean, that's a big recognition.
We love you, Chris. UFO Daddy in the house.
Oh
Nobody
God.
calls him that, by the way. I just started calling him that. We're gonna make it stick, though.
Oh yeah, hashtag UFO Daddy.
Hashtag UFO Daddy. That'll be the episode title to really
I was
confuse
just
people.
thinking that.
All right. Thank you for joining us on It's a Very Exciting Time. And Chuck, as always, my wife thanks you for listening to me talk about UFOs so she doesn't have to.